Hello music listeners, underground enthusiasts, and anybody who hopped on the wave of Zen pouches. Come on, what are we doing? Welcome to a rather short edition of the weekly songs list. There wasn't a whole lot that came out this week that I was particularly compelled to discuss at length, so I was like, maybe I'll just skip this week, maybe I can take a break. But then there was like a couple songs that I really wanted to talk about, and so I felt like I would be remiss if I somehow didn't manage to work a conversation about those in somewhere. So here are the hidden gems of a rather dry listening week for me. We're going to start this week's list off with Micah Callari with Cars 2006. And we are kicking the list off this week with this song because it is a phenomenal track. I'm obsessed. Instrumentally, vocally, lyrically, it all feels like a refreshing and passionate homage to a very specific era of alt-rock. This song sonically borrows tones and splashes of post-punk and grunge, and vocally is reminiscent of like something Cake would have put on a record in the 90s. The chugging lead grooving right along with the crisp punch of the drums immediately makes this song so memorable, and the thick uplifting synths in the chorus are not only richly textured but such a fucking vibe. The vocally dry and blunt depiction of a hostile Christianity-soaked rurality juxtaposed by a romanticized New York noir is pretty fantastic. Vocally, Micah's killer here. It's got such a saturated punch, incessantly catchy and intoxicating in pretty much every element of the production. And this cynical longing that dominates the writing in this track produces some pretty great imagery of a homogenized and bland landscape that Micah desperately wants to escape from. Definitely one of my favorite songs this week and in recent memory. It gets better on each listen. And then we have Kurtis with Bite Back. Kurtis has pretty consistently impressed me with their work, primarily standing out among their contemporaries in terms of this uncompromisingly saturated alt-rock sound that seems to only be increasingly popular. And even in a softer and more emotionally delicate or vulnerable context, Kurtis seems to not be able to shed that brash distortion that pretty much warps the entire tone of the track, crafting an emotionally harsh and pretty upfront sound. Because the gentle guitar plucks from Michael Harrison here persist throughout the track, but are quickly drowned out by these overtly punchy snares and deeply rumbling 808s. But in the end, it's all playing into the advantage of the track. None of this is a bad thing by any means. Underneath that crunchy mix, Kurtis's vocals are pretty tired and poignant, almost kind of being drowned out by the oppressive nature of the percussion in some instances. Even though these vocals are ridiculously punchy, and let's go ahead and rhyme it, ridiculously crunchy, even then, they still sometimes kind of feel muddied out. The finished product is both sonically and emotionally compelling because Kurtis's impassioned performance and Michael Harrison's maximalist approach to the production blend thematically pretty well. It feels like they play off of each other, and the production matches the tone of what Kurtis is saying, and Kurtis's vocal performance matches the tone of what's going on in the production. It's one of my favorite performances from Kurtis in recent memory. It's profound and also incredibly stylish. Continuing the list, we have Drama Trial with Red featuring Leyton. Drama Trial has a slick, warm, buzzing production that honestly only gets better with each listen. Most of the song is pretty supported by a soft bassy rumble that persists throughout pretty much the whole thing, accompanied by these whiny synths that maintain a pretty similar drone to them. Environmental beeps create pulsing texture, and they breathe life into the song, which is something that I've, heard to be pretty consistent in Drama Trial's work. You have this electronic, very obviously, synthetic sound, but at the end of the day, it feels like it's alive. It feels rich and lush and textured, and everything has that life. Drama Trial, like I said, is creating these lush electronic landscapes that entice you to get lost in them. Even in their most simple forms, everything feels so full. And Leyton matches this warm comfort, crooning these gentle vocals wrapped up in a thick processed mix. Soft and tired main vocals are kind of sliding with the aforementioned synths as bright, high-pitched background vocals kind of float above it, giving depth to the environment. It's a gorgeous and pretty ethereal track, but if you're familiar with Drama Trial's work, then that won't really come as a surprise to you. And then up next we have 8485 with Anthropol, which is featuring the talents of Murrumur and blackwinterwells. I have been very excited for this one, and I have been struggling to consolidate my thoughts into a concise, succinct, and functional review. I mean, right away, it's so frantic and urgent, with Murrumur and blackwinterwells' production blasting high-octane synth pulses and rattling bass and hard percussion hits, being as upfront as possible. It's stuttered and it's chaotic, but once given the time, you can recognize the nuances and realize how calculated and methodical to a precise degree this production is. And the vocals on this track are fucking unbelievable. I'm genuinely really blown away by what everybody sort of brings to the table on this track and how dynamic it becomes as a result. 8485's vocals have this slick and glossy mix that only grows in urgency and personality as the song progresses. I love when it reaches this sort of like shout that feels kind of tongue-in-cheek but also still maintains a very serious and intense urgency. Murrumur's screech delivery is pretty visceral, and when supported by these crunchy synths and grinding percussion, it really does just reach new heights. Wells blends in perfectly as well, you know, sounding so at home within the methodical chaos of the track. It's tough to explain. There's so much to pick apart, so much to notice, so much to dissect and enjoy, but this song is astoundingly good, highly conceptual, and I'm absolutely in love with it. I've sung 8485's praises on the weekly tracks before, and Scribbles was even my number 4 song of the year, and honestly, this might just once again prove to be another clean sweep from 8485 in the good old year of 2024. And to end a rather short list, we have Kagi with Full Restore, and this is a return for Kagi. This is the first track of his in 4 years. That's a long time. Think about what was going on 4 years ago. I'll remind you, it was 2020. Think about that. This song is bubbly, yet still incredibly hard-hitting. It's a nice future-based track that feels very meticulously fine-tuned in its production, but more importantly, it's groovy as hell. The instrumentation feels really alive. These bright vocal chops sparkle around very soft synth chords, and when the drop hits, it becomes a bouncy and overwhelmingly uplifting whirlwind of pounding bass, thrashy synth chords, sliding leads. There's also a couple little fun quirks, little one-off sound bites thrown into the mix that are honestly a little goofy as well. They don't change much, but they're fun to point out. As the song progresses, it continually grows and expands, bringing in new elements, becoming multifaceted and nuanced, and it almost starts to be too much, but it's not. It sort of is filtered and maintained and balanced out by this sort of candy-coated whimsy that fuels the track. You know, as I've progressed and made these videos, I've never been too good at describing electronic music, future bass, house, you know, any sort of these related genres, because I think that I'm probably, when it comes to the process of making music and understanding the intricacies and sort of like foundational elements of it, these are genres that I'm probably the least familiar with. And so I always wonder and worry that at the end of the day, I'm not really describing them in a way that somebody that enjoys this sound would find appealing. You know, am I phrasing this in a way that makes you want to listen to it? I don't know. So I will put it as bluntly and as straightforwardly as I believe that I can. I love this song, and I think that you should listen to it. That is going to do it for this week's list. Thank you so much for watching. Did you love the songs? Did you hate the songs? Are you generally indifferent towards them? Let me know, because I would love to know. I value your input. So be sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and give me a compliment. Please be nice to me. Catch me in the next video where the eternal worm finally devours Connecticut.